In addition to being able to restore users, groups, and enterprise applications using the AvePoint Cloud Backup for Azure restore options around Azure Active Directory, you can also restore backed up Azure VMs. To do that, we log on to Cloud Backup for Azure. On the left, click Restore, and right here in the center of the screen, click Azure Virtual Machine. Once the calendar displays, you'll be able to see all of your different backups that have completed, keeping in mind that this particular type of backup can be run multiple times a day. So locate the backup that you want to restore from and click on it. And within that backup, you're going to see the virtual machine that was included. Now you've got a few different options at this point. And of course, if there's a lot of different stuff displaying on your screen, always remember our filters up here at the top, including being able to search. If I want to restore the entire VM, super easy. All you have to do is out here to the far right, click Restore. Now, if you're looking to restore the VM back to its original location with all of its original settings, this couldn't be easier. Literally at this point, you can see the wizard only has 2 steps. What's the VM? Restore it to the original location. Next, be sure to understand what's going to happen. If the VM is live, it's going to be overwritten, and of course, to do that, it will be stopped. If that VM is live and people are accessing it, this can and will create a disruption of service. But then all you have to do is review some of the different settings, including the region, the resource group, the network, and click Restore. Now, if that is super easy, you can also restore the data to a new location, which is super easy as well. It just involves making more choices. So for instance, if I select that and click Next, now it needs to know what M365 subscription I want to restore into. So if you have multiple subscriptions, pick the appropriate one. You would then have to pick the appropriate region that you want to restore into. Yes, you can restore within the original subscription and within the original region. Of course, you won't be able to restore with the original name because you will already have a VM there with that name. Same thing goes for the drive. You'll have to change the drive. But if you would like to restore the VM to a different region, different subscription, you won't have to change those, of course, unless there's already VMs and drives there with those names. So I select where I want it to go and I click Next. Here's where we can change the name if we want to. Here's where we can make selections around resource groups. The disk type. If you have an unmanaged, it can be restored as unmanaged or managed. If you have managed in the original VM, it can only be restored as managed, which is why I cannot edit this here. As far as availability goes, we know we have availability zones and availability sets. The zones provided by Microsoft for some redundancy within the different regions, and availability sets to essentially run your VMs across different hardware in the data centers. So one protects against complete data center loss, which would be the zone, and the other protects against failure within that one data set. So you can see we've got 3 zones to pick from. If I pick an availability set, I have to create that myself, so we don't have any in there. Then, what virtual machine size would you like? I'm not going to scroll through all of these. You can see it's quite a large list, all the way down to some fairly heavy-duty allocations. And then we click Next. Now we come to the disk. At first, it's just the name. Again, if you're restoring to a different subscription and/or region, you can keep that name provided it's not already in use. If you're restoring into the same subscription and region, you'll want to change the name at least a little bit. We get to the network. Which network, subnet, network security group would you like that VM to be a part of? And then finally, review all of your options here. And if you see what you want, click Restore. So, in place and out of place restores for the VM by clicking Restore off to its far right and making a choice. Now, in addition to being able to restore the entire VM, you'll notice I can actually click on the VM itself. What this lets me do is to drive down into the disk that's being used in that VM, and you'll see that I can restore that as well. Same options. If you want to restore it to the original location, leave that in place, click Next, it'll show you the different settings, and click Restore. If you want to restore to a different location, when you select that, the wizard adds a couple of additional steps. Where is that disk going to be restored to is going to be the first part. Subscription and region, very much like the VM that we saw. And then when we get to the disk, you can see some of the different settings around the disk. If you're going to restore to a different subscription and/or region, you won't have to worry much about the name. If you're going to restore into the same one as the original, you can rename it right here. In addition to that, you can also select the disk and click Edit Properties, where you can set the resource group, potentially set the type, same limitations I mentioned earlier, the availability zone, and would you like to attach that to any of the existing VMs in that region. With those choices, click Next, and you'll be able to restore that disk and then be able to go and use it. In addition to easily being able to restore the entire VM in place or out of place, being able to easily restore the disks within that VM in place or out of place, you can also drill down into the content of the disk. So if I continue to click here, what it's going to do is it's going to show me the volumes that are available on that disk. And from the volume level down, really the file system and down, you'll notice that we can export as opposed to restore. So we've got those buttons at the top and out to the right. An export action will create an export job that you can find in the job monitor. It will take some time depending on the volume that you're exporting. And by volume, I don't mean volume in this sense. I mean the amount of content you're exporting. And once that's completed, you'll be able to download that as an encrypted zip and in a separate operation, grab the password that will allow you to unzip that file and gain access to its content. You can even drill down further. If I continue to click, you can see that I'm now within the operating systems folders and drilling down as far as I feel the need to go. Again, once I get to where I want, select it, click Export, go over to the job monitor, wait for that export operation to complete, download the zip, grab the password separately, and you're all set. Now, the reason this works is back here under the Azure Virtual Machine. If I go into my configuration, we'll remember that when we set these up, there is a setting during the wizard where it asks you, would you like to generate the index for file level data export? If you plan to export files from VM backups for data recovery, select the option to generate the index during the backup. Remember, that will slow the backup job, but it gives you that tremendous export functionality that we just took a look at. So if you need that, now you have it. Find what you need, export it, download it, and once you've got what you need, you're all set. So one more time, restore entire VMs in place or out of place. Restore entire disks in place or out of place. Or within the disk, within the VM, you can drill down to the specific folders and content you're looking for and export them in an encrypted zip as well. Thanks for watching this short video on how to restore Azure virtual machines using AvePoint Cloud Backup for Azure.